This channel has a history with live service games. From Anthem to Gears 5, all of these games have something in common. They are a service first and a game second. It's a strange thing to say, considering that a game has to exist first before a service can be implemented. More often than not, however, the development blueprint for live service games is less of, we made a game, make a market around it, and more of, we made a market, make a game around it. And no type of game better exemplifies this than mobile games. I'm no stranger to these kind of games. One of my last videos for Misfit Tangents was talking about my experiences with a one-day festival dedicated to a gacha game, and I've been exposed to many free-to-play games on mobile. A lot of them range from enjoyable to insidiously manipulative. Much like any sensible person on the internet, I'm a simple individual. If the gameplay loop is enjoyable and rewarding enough, I can deal with the stingiest of rate pulls. Yes, any. Unfortunately, my phone isn't strong enough to handle these kind of games for extended periods, so the next option is to scour across the internet to find my next go-to free-to-play game. That's when I came across Genshin Impact. On the surface, it looks like a Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild clone. Once you dig deeper past the copied elements, this game feels unlike any free-to-play game I've ever played in my life. So I played Genshin Impact for about a month by the time you're watching this video. Needless to say, this game has eaten up a majority of my time since launch week. It's become a daily part of my life to grind it to the next rank. I created a second account for certain story elements and re-rolling for new characters, and I've started to stream this game on a weekly basis on my Twitch channel since the game launched. We did it! Yeah, we did it! Link in the description. My adventure rank seems low for that period, since there are other players who managed to exhaust the game's story campaign and reach rank 40. But trust me, a majority of the time was spent not just looting, killing, and completing quests. It's spent by exploring new areas, experimenting with the gameplay mechanics, and basking in the sights and sounds that Genshin Impact has to offer. Like everything else, however, it's not a perfect game. Some are technical, while others are... well, we'll cross that bridge later in the video. Before I go any further, I need to make something clear. This video is not sponsored in any way. All the views expressed are based on my unbiased opinion. I say this because there's a trend in the gaming landscape where free-to-play games, mobile or otherwise, are sponsoring individuals for marketing reasons. I want to make it clear that I'm not one of them. I'm just a dude who loves playing video games who wanted to play a new game after feeling burnt out from products that offered less for more. With that out of the way, let's get on with the review. In previous videos, I had an order I followed when it came to reviewing video games: gameplay, presentation, story, and other miscellaneous topics. For this video, I want to shift the order a bit to better reflect my experiences with the game. When I first played Genshin Impact, the first thing I paid attention to was not its story, its gameplay, or its gacha mechanics, but its presentation. I've played visually striking games before, such as Microsoft Flight Simulator and Batman Arkham Knight, but this game takes the anime aesthetic and remains constant in a large open world. It's so massive, I recorded myself traveling from one end of the map to another to illustrate this point. Let's shorten this 50-minute uncut gameplay video into a short segment traveling from one end of the map to another end. You might be wondering, what exactly did I just witness? Only a slice of what the game has to offer. I only ran from one point of the world to another, and along the way, I battled against enemies, activated teleporters, opened chests, and climbed the highest possible mountain in the game, all in the span of 50 minutes. That's without crossing the southern areas of the two major regions. This is a massive world with vibrance, life, and a functional day-night weather cycle. In other anime-style games, the visuals would appear simplistic, unfinished, or overdone. This isn't the fault of the developers because it's the style they decided to adopt. For certain games, the overall look doesn't translate well. In Genshin Impact, the environment, lighting, and characters all look pleasing to the eyes. Everywhere players would go, there's a brand new place to discover and take in the beautiful scenery. It's a combination of graphics and effective lighting that makes for breathtaking scenes like these. The characters have so much personality based on their idle animations and voice work, I was constantly indecisive on who I wanted my main team to be just based on something so superficial. Noelle is a knight who is willing to take on any task offered to her. Bennett is a down-on-his-luck adventurer who leads a one-man team, Benny's Adventure Team. And Fischl is an archetype reminiscent of Chunibyo characters in anime, a personal weakness of mine. It's difficult for someone like me to like a huge ensemble cast because certain characters are given more attention than others, but the developers managed to make all playable characters stand out on their own. With that said, certain characters still retain that odd look when put under certain lighting conditions. There are other games that nail the anime aesthetic better, such as Dragon Ball FighterZ, but for a massive open world game as Genshin Impact, it's a marvelous thing to witness. Based on visuals alone, this ruins free-to-play games for me on every device. A bold claim, considering that one can't compare a game on PC to a game on mobile devices like Action Taimanin. And before anyone asks, this was one of the few games available on Steam that originally released on mobile devices, to my limited knowledge. Fate Grand Order kept crashing the built-in capture software available for my current phone, and I'm not going to delay this video any further so I can spend $800 for a new phone just to record 10 minutes of footage when an easy-to-access alternative exists. Small rant aside, this isn't meant to say that Action Taimanin is a terrible looking game. If I was able to run this game on my mobile device, I would not mind playing it, because its gameplay is simple but fun, and the art style is reminiscent of the original source material. Okay, I joked about not looking up info before, but trust me on this. Unless you're looking to f yourself up, I implore you, don't Google it. You just need to take my word regarding art. What if I told you that Genshin Impact is not only available on mobile devices, but it's able to run at 60 frames per second? Action Taimanin looks kind of outdated now, doesn't it? Fun fact, this game released days after Genshin Impact came out. Talk about bad timing. Long ago, I used to play an MMORPG named Terra. This game has the typical elements for an MMO. Character customization, classes, complicated UI, a large explorable map, static NPCs, the entire platter. I played this game for hours on end. While I did like playing it, there are some personal issues I have, such as character movement feeling sluggish, the menu system being cumbersome, and the overall story being forgettable. Most veteran MMO players can get over these issues, but coming from someone who has played with a controller for all my life, the keyboard and mouse setup can get annoying. Hang on, why am I talking about MMOs all of a sudden? I thought Genshin Impact is supposed to be a single-player game with multiplayer components. Well, this game feels like a single-player game with elements of traditional MMOs. There's NPCs that have their titles underneath their names, quests that offer character and weapon advancement, among other things. However, what separates traditional MMORPGs from Genshin Impact is the gameplay and its fluidity. Getting back to Terra for a bit, the game's large map is open for players to explore, but traversing the landscape can be clunky and eventless. Enemies are scattered with no rhyme or reason, movement is limited to 8 directions or to the movement of your camera, and the moment-to-moment combat can feel sluggish at times. In Genshin Impact, there's enemy camps that indicate enemy activity, combat is free-flowing, and the exploration is unlike anything I've played thus far. The aim is to rank up your adventure rank in order to challenge tougher enemies and acquire powerful items. How does one do this? You can do it by completing missions, finishing daily quests, opening chests, activating teleporters, making offerings to statues, defeating elite bosses, complete domains, mining, and even cooking. There is so much to do that contributes to your rank. It shocks me that this is a free-to-play game that allows you to do whatever you want. Sometimes, but we'll get there. All of this is without mentioning the free-flowing combat. Genshin Impact is an action RPG that utilizes the 4-character party system, where players can switch between 4 characters during combat. These characters have different elements and playstyles. For example, Amber utilizes pyro when charging up her shot with her bow and arrow, while the main character uses a sword while controlling the wind element, initially. Experimentation is the main attraction of the overall gameplay due to a fun mechanic known as elemental reactions. This is where the gameplay truly shines, as two characters with different elements can create different effects against enemies. Using Amber's pyro attacks with Lisa's electric attacks will result in an explosion, and using Kaya's cryo ability against a slime with hydro will freeze it. This mechanic encourages different playstyles and using different characters that would yield effective results. It's simply incredible. And now comes the part where I criticize a certain mechanic that the community seems to collectively hate. In typical mobile games, you're given a certain amount of replenishable currency that's used to tackle content. Once it's gone, players have the option to wait for hours until the energy is full, or use premium currency to expedite the waiting process. It's a limitation imposed by developers to limit the amount of in-game rewards players can receive in a given day. In Genshin Impact, that limitation is in the form of resin. If players want to rank up weapons and characters in the game, they must tackle special enemies and domains and spend as little as 20 or as much as 60 resin to claim those rewards. If a player were to tackle these challenges and they don't have enough resin, no rewards will be given. Currently, there are two ways to replenish resin without waiting, using primogems or fragile resin. The former uses currency that's used for gambling for the chance to get better weapons and characters, so it's out of the question to use them. While the latter's resources are so finite, it's better to save the fragile resin for endgame grinding. As of writing this script, developers are applying a fix that would raise the resin cap from 120 to 160. In my opinion, it's like applying a band-aid to a much bigger issue. Applying limitations to a game that's as big as this one would discourage grinding for long periods of time. You have to understand, while this game is put out on PCs and consoles, this game was made with mobile devices in mind. I understand why the devs want to impose limitations, as it is a free-to-play game. I don't have to like it, but I'd rather have this system than worse hypothetical alternatives, like limiting how many chests, normal or otherwise, can be opened in any given day, or applying an overall stamina bar that limits character usage. I'm not defending the resin mechanic, but I won't pretend that it's not an issue. But to play devil's advocate, Genshin Impact hasn't given me a reason to rush through the game to get the best characters and weapons. There's a reason why I showed my adventure rank first. I wanted to explore what the game had to offer and experiment with the characters and equipment I owned and form an effective team composition around it. While others are struggling with getting the best of everything, I'll be busy having fun with what I got. And what I got isn't exactly what I call original. There's no denying that Genshin Impact doesn't have a single hint of originality. To illustrate this, I'll list off some elements featured in this game and show what other games have that. Free-flowing combat, Devil May Cry, collecting floating orbs, Crackdown, the freedom to tackle a mission within the player's discretion, the classic Grand Theft Auto games. Now, you may have noticed that I've neglected to talk about a certain game that served as a major inspiration, or ripped off depending on who you ask, for Genshin Impact. Unfortunately, my experience with the Legend of Zelda series is limited. The only games I played are Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, so I can't comment on the similarities between Breath of the Wild and this game. With that said, I can at least make observations on a surface level. From the art style to the gameplay mechanics and the freaking title screen of the game, it's easy to say where Genshin Impact takes heavy inspiration from. My stance is this: there's no such thing as a truly original game, at least not to this day and age. The best developers can do now is iterate and improve on what's worked before, and the devs of Genshin Impact did just that. It's far from original, but whatever elements it took, they made a fun-to-play game out of it. A disclaimer: while there won't be any major story spoilers, there will be story elements highlighted in this video in order to give examples. The major storyline is about the player character looking for their sibling after being sent to another world. With your little fairy elf thing in tow, seriously, what the hell is she supposed to be? The two go on an adventure, meeting with other companions and traveling across the continent of Teyvat. Without spoiling the story of Genshin Impact, I tend to forget that I'm playing a video game, and without any exaggeration or sarcasm, it feels like watching an episode of an anime. In the game, there are two types of missions, the main story missions and the character missions. Each mission lasts for as short as 20 minutes and as long as 50 minutes, and all of them take place in the world of Teyvat. Currently, there are 2 regions players can explore. Mondstadt, the region of wind that takes inspiration from German culture, and Liyue, the region of Geo that takes inspiration from Chinese culture. There are other regions that exist in the game, such as the electro-dominant region Inazuma, but as with the release of this video, it's inaccessible. Localization is a topic not many people talk about in detail when it comes to foreign-made video games. When I was young, I never paid any mind to that kind of stuff. I simply accepted the translation for what it is. This resulted in listening to line deliveries like these.
Doesn't make any sense! How is it not falling? I mean, what about gravity?
First, the trouble with the knights yesterday. Now the aquablastia breaks. Why does stuff like this happen every day in the lower quarter? I know. There's no use whining about it.
That last one is what I paid more attention to, as this was re-released recently. Nowadays, localization is a much smoother process, but the re-release of Tales of Vesperia serves as a time capsule for localizations of the past. The line deliveries and casting for certain characters are strange compared to their Japanese counterpart.
You've got the wrong guy. Aren't you supposed to know this stuff?
He's not Flynn!
Details, bring it!
相手完璧に間違ってるぜ。仕事はもっと丁寧にやんな。
この人はフレンじゃありません。
そんな些細なことはどうでもいい。さあ、続きをやるぞ。
Maybe it's because I'm not used to how this game's world works or if Troy Baker's voice sticks out like a sore thumb, but it does feel jarring at times. With that said, Genshin Impact also has these translation problems as well if you look and listen closely. On one hand, audio quality ranges from actor to actor, most likely due to real-world events. Lip syncing is way off for all characters minus a native Chinese language, and dialogue during cutscenes would either desync or would cut off early to load the next line.
You were planning this all along to have me slain.
On the other hand, I think every voice actor did their part well, even though there are certain exceptions.
貴様、何をする気だ？この元素力、まさか。
The writing for the English translation compared to works in the past sound natural. Some of the actors managed to throw in a funny line from time to time. My favorite being, without a hint of irony, Paimon. Yes, she's been the butt of many jokes and memes from the beginning alongside Amber, but the English voice actress does a great job delivering the script.
Bards fight to get on the stage of my tavern. Don't make assumptions.
Is that really important right now, Master Diluc? And you! Did you just borrow the Holy Lyre to play music for drunkards to hear? What do you mean?
The only exception is the first 10 minutes of the game, where she sounds more like a tutorial character than an actual character.
The path ends here! Guess we'll just have to climb! Climbing depletes stamina, and depleted stamina takes time to recover. Okay, let's take the route we planned!
But, if you want consistent voice work from all languages for a single character, look no further than...
Hey, cutie. You're going to help me out too? How kind of you. Don't hesitate to come to me if you need anything.
From English and Korean to Chinese and Japanese, every actress plays Lisa exceptionally.
So, did you have something you needed? Or did you just come to see me?
马乔丽小姐，最近有什么有意思的货品吗？干嘛用那种眼神看着我？这么值得纪念的日子，想要挑个纪念品是理所当然的吧？
물론이지. 그 귀찮은 일을 먼저 했다간 맛있는 음식도 맛이 변해버릴 거야.
物分かりがいいわね。あなたを助手にしてそばに置きたいくらい。
However, it's strange. Why does the Japanese voice actress sound so familiar? Oh no. And with that, My years lost their virginity. Just because Genshin Impact is a free-to-play game doesn't mean the developers don't want your hard-earned money. Business is business, and the hard-working developers at MiHoYo are looking for some form of compensation for their work. The results are several forms of monetization: a gacha system, a premium currency, and a battle pass that's available by the time you reach Adventure Rank 20. Let's talk about the battle pass for a bit. There are two different tiers of rewards that players can unlock: the free tier, named the Sojourner's Battle Pass, and the paid tier, Gnostic Hymn. The only way to level up your battle pass is by completing challenges found in the battle pass menu. This is just like any other game that has this feature, such as Fortnite and Modern Warfare. The big difference is that Genshin Impact offers various forms of consumables, weapons, and currency for gacha rolls, instead of cosmetic items like the aforementioned games. Much like the resin mentioned earlier, the battle pass also imposed limits by limiting how much XP can be earned in a single week, and by now I'm getting really tired of this. While the gameplay is liberating, the mechanics surrounding the game are so constrained by its mobile game intentions. However, if we're talking about Insidious, we need to talk about the real moneymaker for Genshin Impact. Please understand, I do not condone this kind of monetization method. I've been very vocal about my stance on scummy monetization practices in the past, and the gacha system in Genshin Impact is no different. Now, I'm not going to waste 10 minutes on discussing whether or not gacha is considered a form of a loot box mechanic or not, because the answer is painfully obvious. Announcer?
Yes, it is.
Just because it goes by a different name doesn't mean its functionalities are different. Players roll for the chance of getting a character or special item and fall into a depressive state because they didn't get Chi-Chi after grinding for hours or spent thousands of dollars. And honestly, I'm neither surprised nor as angry as most players are. Lots of gachas are like this. Genshin Impact became notable for this because it's reaching a wider audience and achieved a level of popularity unlike any other gacha game before. Fate Grand Order is huge, but its audience is limited to mobile users. Genshin Impact is available on mobile devices, PC, and consoles. The other reason is very simple. Even if you have bad luck in rolling for 5-star characters, the free characters the game offers in the beginning are still useful. It would be nice to have characters like Diluc or Chi-Chi in the party, but someone like Noelle can fulfill the role of a heavy hitter like the former and a healer like the latter. Could she be better? Absolutely. But when you have luck as worse as Benny's, compromises need to be made. Truth be told, I wasn't sure where to put this segment on this video. My rant regarding action time mining didn't exactly leave a proper transition to another element about presentation. Considering that this is a common talking point in my reviews, I didn't want to exclude it. So, let's talk music. The background music you've been hearing throughout this review was performed by a live orchestra composed by Yu Peng Cheng. The score, much like the gameplay, isn't anything new. In fact, I can vaguely hear the Final Fantasy theme in one of the tracks. In Genshin's defense, this tune is also found in other RPGs. It's simply a common melody that these games tend to follow, whether intentional or not. With that said, the composer and the orchestra are no less talented. A majority of the music for this game is very short, usually lasting no longer than a minute and a half. This is due to the composer creating different themes at different times of day. Let's take Qingyun Peak as an example. As you climb this tall mountain peak, the pieces transition depending on the time of day. The battle themes are fun to listen to when fighting against enemies.
Come a little closer. Try not to enjoy this too much.
Even the one-off compositions are memorable, from the silly and whimsical to the melancholic. It's a good problem to have when deciding on what pieces to highlight on the video, because everything is composed so beautifully. This review is unlike any game I've covered on this channel. It's not a complete game whose DLC support has ended, or a full game that was recently released. Genshin Impact is a game which will get many updates in its lifespan, whether it's a year, 5 years, or even 5 months. As of writing this script, version 1.1 will occur on November 11th, bringing new characters and potential changes to the current meta. There's no doubt in my mind that I'll eventually grow tired of this game like Terra before it, but I will never forget the magic and enjoyment when playing Genshin Impact over the course of this past month. This game isn't meant for just anyone. The grind can get tedious, and the gacha system can be off-putting for newcomers. There's a topic people don't discuss in the gaming industry that I continually see for more than a decade. Most of us take gaming for granted. In our pursuit for alleviating our boredom, we don't stop and take a look at the marvelous work the developers have done. Yes, they were heavily inspired by games of the past, but it doesn't diminish the developers' passions to create a game that builds upon what's been done. In my opinion, MiHoYo went above and beyond my expectations for a free-to-play title. Actually, that's the craziest thing. This is a game that people can download on their PCs, game consoles, and mobile devices for free. This is compared to countless other live service games that charge $60 for a game that's most likely devoid of meaningful content and full of bugs, glitches, and monetization. With Genshin Impact, the price of admission costs the same as breathing air. Considering what you get out of the game, it feels like a true AAA game anyone can try out for themselves. Only time will tell if the game lives beyond the first year, since other games like this barely make it past the first 6 months. As for myself, I'll get lost in this brand new world, ripe for exploration and expansion.